Subcast. It is Friday, September 5th. Clemson fans still dealing with the buzzkill that was last Saturday against LSU. I got news for you, though. There were buzzkills across the country at a lot of other places, too. Misery loved some company, and it was week one. We're not ready to give up on this team yet, even though Dabo Swinney is encouraging us to, telling us to write that Clemson sucks. Paul Strelo and I have been at it this week at TigerIllustrated.com, analyzing what happened, analyzing what has to happen for this team to get where it wants to go. Never been a better time than right now to join TigerIllustrated.com, which is a part of the On3 Network. So this podcast has been going since August of 2018, more than 770,000 downloads of more than 340 episodes, and my great friends Blake Smith and Brooke Archenhold at Parham Smith Archenhold Law Firm have been a part of it for every single one. They are longtime Clemson people, and they give you the experience and the results you need. Their team can help with personal injury and medical malpractice cases. They currently serve North Carolina and South Carolina with offices in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Charleston. If you or your family has been injured, I want you to help you get the compensation you deserve. Schedule a free consultation by calling 864-301-8767 or by going to parhamlaw.com. That's PARHAMlaw.com. As president of Harris Home in Anderson, South Carolina, Scott Junkins knows all about foundations and how to cover them beautifully. His client list includes Clemson University, BMW, and Greenville's Floor Field, along with thousands of homes and businesses throughout the area. Harris Home was previously Harris Flooring, but the next logical step was to expand beyond flooring and manage complete interior renovations. Scott has assembled an expert team that completely manages every step of any redesign project, from ideas to finishing touches with both residential and commercial projects. Open the door to more by going to discoverharris.com or by calling 864-225-8631. Okay, we sat down with Brad Brownell back in early July for what is always a great conversation with Clemson's basketball coach. At the time, he was dealing with an injury to Carter Welling, the transfer. From what we can gather, Welling is back and practicing, so that's good news. Looking forward to hearing more about that from Brownell here, hopefully in the next week or so. But this is a great big picture chat with the man who basically has a whole new team this year. All right, enjoy. Here we go. It feels really surreal to say Brad Brownell is preparing for his 16th season at Clemson and Dabo's preparing for his 17th as head coach. It's just kind of extraordinary, obviously. Does that feel weird to hear and to also say, I guess?
It's a blessing.
Yeah.
You know, obviously I'm thankful and grateful for still being here, but no, there's certainly an element of belief that you better have as a coach that you can be successful and that you're going to get it done. And, we've certainly done very well here the last, 7 or 8 years. Still like to do a little more, but, obviously very proud of all that. And that's part of why you're still here after 16 years or going into year 16 is because you have had, some success. And obviously I'm very proud of that and know that it's taken the hard work of a lot of folks to get to that point. Don't take it for granted at all. And, just like everyone, still hungry for more.
What have the last few weeks been like around here?
Just a lot different because of so many new players. I mean, it is a completely different team. It's almost like taking over a new job with just a group of guys that you don't know, and that you're trying to get to know. And, some of that is exciting. It's fun. It keeps you young. It keeps you hungry. It's, there's a new energy and enthusiasm that young people bring when they have a new opportunity. And whether they're freshmen who are, young and naive and just not sure going to college and, all the worries and wonders of what that looks like, or it's a grad transfer that's, just looking for a new opportunity and excited about, playing somewhere different. And we have a lot of guys on this team that, sort of transferred up, if you will. The ACC is a higher level than a lot of them have played in, and so there's an enthusiasm for that, and so that's all exciting and fun. And I love going out onto the court. I wish we had more time because we only get 4 hours a week. But I'm down there in the weight room with them every day, trying to be visible and spend time and get to know them and see them in all different kinds of settings so that I can, evaluate them a little bit and, get to know them a little bit and let them know how much we care and are involved. That's part of what we really sell in recruiting, is that we're going to be involved in a lot of this. We're not just going to see it practice.
I think we normally do this a good bit earlier in the summer, but I think we both wanted you to get some valuable time learning, and this summer much more important for that learning process. Obviously, you haven't learned everything, but what have you learned over the last, month or so?
The thing I would say the most is I think we've recruited a bunch of really good guys. Just really good people that fit what we're about, and guys who I think are excited and hungry and hopeful and optimistic and fun to be around. And I think that's a great starting point. I think we've recruited a group of guys that like each other and have really enjoyed over this month that they've been in Clemson, spending time together. And that's one of the good things, because it is pretty slow around here. There aren't as many people. You're naturally thrown together a little bit by basketball, but then you also make decisions on whether you choose to spend even more time together. And there aren't as many options out there, so the guys are really just, I think, thriving in terms of the time that they're spending away from basketball together. And that's, I think that's really important. I even talked about it with our older guys when they first got here. After about a week of being here, I talked to them a little bit about, hey, why we've been successful. And, one of the big reasons is we have a team of guys that really like and respect each other, and that there's an appreciation for each other and appreciation for our program and how we do things, and your team has really got to like each other, I think, to be successful. It really helps your team be successful, I should say. And the way you do that is you have to spend time together away from basketball. You can't just be thrown together by everything we set up for you. You guys have got to genuinely want to try to get to know each other, and if you do those kinds of things, it'll help our team grow quickly. And I think we got a group of guys that are doing that.
I want to maybe back up and go over maybe more some big picture items over the last, 6 months or so. The Indiana thing, obviously no small thing, not your typical school out there. That was a possibility. How do you reflect on that now, and maybe just share sort of that juncture in your career life as you're evaluating, what do I want, and sort of maybe we can tell this, that sort of is where you begin the story of how you got to the new contract and the clause in the contract and all that.
Yeah, just it's flattering to be called by them and have some conversations. At a different time in my life, maybe I would have really gone even harder for the job. I really didn't. And there's a myriad of reasons why. Number one being that I love it here at Clemson, and I've been treated well, and this is home to us, and my two daughters are graduates, as most people know, and my wife loves living here, and I love living here, and I love working for President Clements and Graham Neff and the board, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished here, especially the last 7 or 8 years, and would like to see that continue to go. And, you know, the thought of being Indiana's coach certainly was something that, you know, maybe when I was younger, it would have, you know, there was I never would have not tried to get that job. You know, and actually I did. I interviewed for the job when Crean got it and finished second. But, you know, it was, I was never like their first choice. So you know, it wasn't like, hey, they just came at me with all this stuff. I was somebody that was in the mix. And, but really, you know, because you're still coaching your team and worrying about what's going on, some of those conversations are happening at the end of your season. You know, that was not a distraction for me at all, because I didn't, you know, and unfortunately I didn't do a good job coaching the game against McNeese and we lost, but it wasn't because of that. It was not, it wasn't a distraction at all. I was, you know, 100% with this team and what we were trying to do. And you know, kind of through talking to my wife after we'd had a conversation with Indiana and just kind of thought about things, you know, it just didn't feel like it was the right thing for me and for our family. And, you know, especially our family. And I just, you know, I think that, you know, these jobs are so hard on families. You know, I've been blessed that my daughters, when we came here in 4th and 7th grade, were able to consistently stay in a place and go to one high school and one college and have a good experience and, you know, feel the way they do about Clemson, and we all do. And that just really meant a lot to me and our family. And I just wasn't going to try to do something different for maybe a childhood dream or something. It just didn't feel right, and your family makes so many sacrifices in these jobs that this wasn't a sacrifice at all. It just made the decision or the thought of staying here all the more clear.
Can you refresh me on finishing second at Crean?
Yeah, that was when I was at Wright State. I can't even remember what year it was, but went and interviewed in Indianapolis, and you know, things went well. I was still young, and Indiana was in kind of some shambles at that point, and I think that, you know, they obviously interviewed several guys, but ended up hiring Tom Crean. But, you know, I was right there and had been told that if, you know, the night before that, hey, I think this is the way we're going to go, and we're not sure if he's going to take it or not because it isn't in the greatest of shape. But if he doesn't, we want you to. And I had some folks helping me on the inside a little bit. But everything happens for a reason, and they should have hired Tom at that time. He had much more experience and did a good job for a long time. And thankfully, I was able to get the Clemson job a couple of years later.
The history of Clemson basketball doesn't include coaches having those types of opportunities. Basketball coaches stay in Lawrence to Texas, Brownell to DePaul. Obviously, there was more to it than just your personal, the family thing. Things have to be in a place here for. You know, they're different maybe from traditionally in terms of the commitment and such. Can you maybe get into that sort of?
Well, it's not the same in terms of, you know, revenue sharing, and I mean, it's not. Yeah. It's just not, and it never will be probably. And there's going to be some challenges with Clemson basketball moving forward and the new revenue sharing model. I mean, it's just our numbers are not going to be at the level of a lot of folks. And, you know, but that was, you know, for having resources and opportunity, Indiana would have been the choice. But that wasn't, again, where this was for my situation. It's the way I'd been treated. how happy we are, and obviously, I mean, I'm still hungry to try to do great things at Clemson, even though I know it's going to be hard moving forward. It's, you know, it's that's the real challenge. Now, do I think that Graham and Michael Drake and folks like that are going to try to help? I do, but our revenue number is going to be low, and so that's real. And we're what does that look like? I don't know. How does that impact things? I mean, it impacted this team. You know, there's a point when you only have so much money and you're watching competitors recruit guys that you'd like to recruit, but you can't because the numbers go to places you can't go. And again, I'm not saying this at all and like complaining about the situation. I mean, it's, you know, it's what it is, and it's because Clemson football is a power and should be, and it's, you know, it's a major part of the culture of this school and university and community and state. And, you know, obviously because of that, they bring in an incredible amount of revenue, and that's why they're going to be given you know, such a big number, and they should be. So you know, it really, the revenue and that part of it was probably not a positive. That was the part that you wrestle with a little bit of like, hey, you know, I've talked openly about wanting to go coach a Final Four, and when you get as close as we got 2 years ago, man, as a competitor, it sticks in your stomach, man. You just, you know, that hurts. You know, I still think we can do it here. It's just going to be hard. But it wasn't like it was easy a couple years ago or in our Sweet 16 year either. You just got to figure out a way to try to get it done, and that's my job.
My understanding all along has been football 85, 86%, basketball 11% of the rev share. Is that still
Yes.
the understanding what
Yes.
it's going to be? Whereas
Yes.
competitors in basketball, 50% plus.
Yeah, there's some that are going to be 20.
Yeah. So how do you, can you give a tangible sort of, not abstract, because I don't know if the fans out there totally understand, like, it's so complicated now with, I don't even think a lot of people know the difference between revenue
Well,
share
it would be
and
like, I mean, if the numbers were just with that, it would be like us having $2 million, some teams having $3 million, anywhere in between that, and then some people having as much as almost $4 million.
Yeah.
Now, those numbers will be even bigger next year because of other things that have gone into all this. But I mean, that's basically what it's going to be. It's going to be like pro sports, and you know, I'm holding out hope that we can be the OKC Thunder or Indiana Pacers. Right? We're going to be a small market team that hopes to, you know, overachieve, if you will, a little bit, because our salary cap will not match that of many of the teams in our league, or you know, the SEC or Big Ten. Or the part that is a little bit frightening in all this is more of like the basketball only schools. Obviously the Big East schools, but even schools like VCU and College of Charleston and a lot of Atlantic 10 schools have done better this portal season. It seems like people have figured some things out, and you know, the Rhode Islands, if you will, or people up in that kind of realm. And there's plenty of those schools out there that people don't think about that are going to, you know, could have close to as much money or same as money as we do. And, you know, you've got to figure out, you know, what your sell is and how you're going to, you know, lure people to your team. And, you know, that's where player identification, recruiting, you know, trying to keep kids, retention, is going to be vital. And then it's also going to be vital that Clemson Ventures helps us in some way to supplement some of this with our guys. You know, I mean, and you know, and that I have no idea what that's going to look like. You know, we're a smaller market, so that may not even match what. It's certainly not going to match what some of the Dukes and those kind of people, Louisville's, but what does that look like comparatively? I don't know. I do know this, that, Graham wants to try to win, right? And we're going to do everything we can within the rules to try to be competitive and be successful. And so I'm confident that, we're going to have some support. There's going to be some things, though, that just are definitely more difficult. There's going to be some situations where we can't recruit kids because the numbers just don't allow us to do that.
Mm-hmm. So the idea behind Clemson Ventures, just for clarity, is coming up with
Real NIL.
real and above the cap, creative ways to have like more corporate driven.
Correct.
Sponsorships and
Correct.
such. And that's your.
Yes.
Anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think, it's funny. Our staff is going to have a big meeting with Michael. I think it's next week. So we've kind of had some general discussions, and same thing with Graham. But I think we're all trying to figure it out. Like, that's what a lot of this is. I think these next couple of years, it's a real feeling out process and figuring out who actually has what. And, I think you've seen some of the benefits, with Clemson football and their recruiting right now and retention of players. And I mean, there's obviously, they know that they've got X amount of money to work with. And so they've got to be as competitive as just about anybody in the country. And because of all their success and national championships, and because this is an unbelievable place, I think you're seeing that, Dabo and his staff have done an unbelievable job of recruiting right now and roster development. They seem very poised for a big year, and future looks bright with the way things are going. So, but now the rest, how does that work with everybody else? I think most of the rest of us are still baseball. The one thing that, the scholarships for all the other sports, I think, is a huge thing. That's going to be a really big thing for, baseball and some of the other sports. But what happens in terms of revenue sharing and how does that all look? I think, Eric and I especially, and Sean, Poppy, and women's basketball are all still kind of trying to figure that part of it out.
You mentioned that the revenue sort of cap affected this team because y'all were over or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the cynics out there sort of are skeptical that schools out there, that's not going to keep them from getting who they really want.
Yes, I think there's some thought of there's worry that we're going to go back to under the table recruiting, and I clearly was witness to some of that during my first 10 years here, when it was there were more things like that going on. Obviously, here in the last couple of years, it's really it feels like since COVID on, it really felt like a whole different era, if you will. But yeah, I think there's real concern of what's going to be done. I mean, there's talks of some schools are not going away from their collectives, and who knows. Again, I can't be too worried about some of that, because it just all that does is drain energy from me trying to focus on what we've got to do. We're not going to do that. So we've never done that. We don't operate that way. So we're going to figure out what we can do within the rules to have the best team possible and not make excuses if we don't.
So it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of faith out there that this model, mainly the enforcement model, is going to actually
I think we're hopeful,
yeah.
but I think we're in that honeymoon stage here for a couple of years where we're all hopeful. Is just, I don't know how else to.
I mean, today's July 1st, the first day of it, and even weeks before now, the conversation has started to include the collective bargaining. Hey, we got to have, the Tennessee AD has already said, hey, let's just be real here. we need collective bargaining. That's the only thing that can solve this. Where are you on that?
I probably, I need no more information, but yes, I mean, I think there's, the more transparency and the more equal we can make things, the better. You know, people in every walk of life are always looking for angles and can beat the system. It's not just, cheating in college athletics. There's a lot of people cheating in a lot of different businesses out there. That's why, it takes real integrity to know that that's options and then not do it. Right? I mean, when it's your livelihood and, you're tested into what do you really believe? Everybody talks about culture, right? That's the buzzword in athletics. Any new guy that gets hired in any job is going to immediately talk about, we got to establish our culture. We have this great culture. I mean, to me, it's, your culture is your values and your habits. It's just a simple, that's what I tell our players. It's what do we believe in? And then do our habits reflect and actions reflect our values? And there's a lot of people that have these great values and their habits and actions don't reflect those same things. But we just got to try to be the best we can be and focus on us and not worry about all the other things that are going on. But I shouldn't say not worry about it. We have to be aware of what is going on in terms of trying to figure out best practices. And that's working like crazy with the folks at Clemson to do what we can to create the best environment for our players. And financially, that's part of it. I do wish there was a little bit of a handle. I mean, this doesn't go together, right? Where you have transfer portal and you have 1-year contracts and no penalties for kids to leave. And and they can just constantly go for more money. And what are we really doing with college sports? I don't think anybody loves that. I'm not opposed to kids transferring. I think there's legitimate reasons, a lot of them. And I also say that, these kids work really hard. I mean, a typical day in the summer, our guys are coming in here for an hour to lift. They're probably going to stay and shoot for, 45 minutes on their own. They're going to go do some academic work middle of the day, and then we're going to come back and practice for an hour, 4 to 5. It's a full day, and they're doing it. This is their off season, right? I talk about all the times in April and September, and you drive down, come back from lunch, and you look on campus at a fraternity house, or you look out at Bowman Field, or wherever you look, and there's kids having a great time goofing around, and our guys are going to practice. Our guys are going to. It may not even be practice yet. It might be early September, and they're going for basketball workouts. And it's like to not think that they're, earning their money or degrees or scholarships, all of the above is not fair. And then when it's 6 o'clock in the morning and they're in here lifting weights, I mean these kids work really hard, and in all sports, not just, I'm not talking about just football or basketball. I'm talking about rowers and so I'm for those kids getting compensated, but I wish we did have some rules to it,
The clause in your contract, the special assistant, the AD idea, that was your idea. Can you remember when those wheels started turning in your mind that that's something that you...
Well, I've seen it with some other coaches occasionally, and it's Graham came to me towards the end of the season, I think it was still the last couple weeks or week of the regular season, one of those two times, and said, maybe it was a couple weeks, and said, hey, I want to get with you and talk about some things moving forward. Obviously contract related and others, and so get some thoughts together, talk to your lawyer, whoever, and we'll connect again in a week. And so that's when some of the stuff was happening with, beginning to happen around Indiana, or my name was floating, whatever. And, I'd had conversations with my wife, and, we talked about all the different things, and it's like, hey, one of the decisions we're making probably is like, if we're not trying to become the Indiana coach, then where would I even want to go? Like, I don't, and I'm not saying you never say never, but like it's, we really don't want to go anywhere. And I've never looked in 15 years, and I have been contacted a few times from some schools, but I've never ever gone down the road of it, because I've always either felt, hey, we have a lot more work to do here. We need to, I have things I want to try to accomplish at Clemson. Obviously, we love it here. And even in the years when there was a year one time when I know my back was against the wall, I really believed in our team, and it was just I wasn't going to leave because I wanted to coach that group. And again, I long-winded answer to all this, but it's really like, hey, we love it here. I mean, why would we want to go anywhere else? Well, then you start to think of, okay, well, what does this look like? This is our end game, likely. Well, I don't know how long I want to coach. I could be 3 years, could be 5 years, could be 10 years. Some of it is this whole new world order that we're in, and where's it going, and how much joy do I still get out of doing this? And so, when I was talking to Graham, we were talking about a myriad of things, and one of the things I talked to him about was, Graham, one of the things that you guys can offer that Indiana or somebody would never really offer me is sort of a special assistant job to the AD, just providing value anywhere I can. And, I do think that the fundraising part of it has been obvious. And I've talked for years about how, for 15 years I've busted my hump to raise money and interest in Clemson basketball, and, was really shocked when I first got here at how little support there was. And, for the first 5 years, it felt like, man, I was just spending as much time doing that as I was coaching my team. And, where that bared fruit for us was here recently, because we had a little bit of a small army in place. So when the NIL game came free, we had some folks that wanted to help us, and, we were ahead of folks a little bit. I don't want to say a lot, but a little bit on a year or two, a couple years back. And but I also think I've brought some value just in terms of, athletic department. I don't know, morale's the right word, or support, or, I love the other head coaches here, have good relationships with many of them. And, Graham and I have talked about a myriad of issues regarding coaching and just a bunch of different situations within athletics as a whole, and this world that we're in, and all these things. And I think I've been a good sounding board on some things over the years on a variety of topics with Graham, and just so I just kind of told him, I said, hey, I think I still have value even if I'm not a coach here anymore. And I'm not saying I don't want to coach, because I do, but what would your thought be to that? And he was, he kind of smiled at me and said, that's an interesting concept and thought. And, yeah, I mean, I like some things about that a lot, because you have brought value in some of this. And so, then he kind of talked about running it up the chain of command, and we'll see where it goes. And this is what we came back with.
Can you describe the evolution of your relationship with y'all's relationship? It seems like, and this is a positive, it's not all hunky-dory, that y'all challenge each other, and it's interesting that way.
Yeah, well, Graham was, obviously when he worked for Dan, he was my sports supervisor. So, I mean, just like Kevin is now, Kevin White. And it's not like you don't still talk to the AD. You do talk to the AD. But day to day, you're talking to your sports supervisor. And so, shoot, I don't, you know, what year did Graham get here? I can't, you would know that better than me. He's been here at least,
14.
I mean, he's been here a long time. And it hasn't all been great. And so we've had, you know, hard conversations. We've had, you know, meaningful conversations. I think there have been some things that I've been able to open his eyes to, and vice versa, him with me on a lot of things. I really value his opinion. I think he's a brilliant AD. But we've been through a lot together, you know, and we've had hard conversations, and we've had times where we've gone back and forth at each other a couple times when we haven't been real happy with each other. And we've had times where we've, you know, gotten emotional and been, you know, really supportive of one another and appreciative of one another. And you know, that means a lot, right? It just does. You just, I've been in a situation where it hasn't been that way, and that's part of why I left UNC Wilmington. And I had a great AD at Wright State that was terrific for me and my family. And you know, Graham obviously has a vested interest in basketball, and so that helps. But I think we also align in our values of how we want to do things, and that's critical as well.
When you're looking back to the way things ended last season, how much are injuries sort of at the forefront of your?
Yeah, I hate to lead with that because, I mean, there's just, you know, I'm extremely disappointed with how it ended. It was such a terrific season. And to win 27 games and to go 18-2 in the ACC, it's amazing to think we could go 18-2 and not share in a regular season title. It's just hard to even fathom that, which is a crazy thought. But it ended poorly, and I'm responsible for that. And it makes my stomach, you know, it just hurts. But yeah, I think the thing, you know, the Dillon one is just so unfortunate, the timing of it. And you know, it's funny because how do you look at Dylan Hunter and a guy who averages 5 points a game, and you're like, man, that just, you know, okay, like if you're going to lose a guy, that'd be the guy you lose. You don't want to lose Chase, you don't want to lose Ian, you don't want to lose Victor, you don't want, you know, all these guys are double figure score. But there was something about Dillon with last year's team, and I think as much as anything, it just had to do with he and his brother. And it, you know, Chase is such a good player, but such a laid back guy. Just Dillon was the one guy on the floor that could kind of go at him and kind of, I don't know, it was like those two could click somehow. And it's like things you don't even know until you have them. Or you know, then when they're gone, you realize, wow, that was, and I think we felt that a little bit. But the thing that probably towards the end of the season, I mean, Ian Shefflin last year just he was hurt a lot more than people realized. Like his back was obviously bothering him throughout. That was part of it. But he also had an Achilles that I think is probably still bothering him some, even with football. And by the end of the year, he just wasn't the same. And if you look at the game, I don't even know. I mean, I don't remember if he made a basket. Like you know, he didn't. Like he only practiced the day before the game again, and he just didn't have it. And you know, their quickness was a real problem for us, especially their post quickness. The smaller big guys just bothered us. You know, we couldn't make a shot, it's terrible that our shooting the last 6 games of the year was like 25% from 3. I mean, we've looked at it and tried to figure why it would. I mean, Jaden Zachary was like the only guy on the team that was making threes at the end of the year consistently. Chase made a few, but his percentage was dropping. I don't know if he wore down a little bit. I don't. As good as our team was last year, our bench was not as good as I maybe hoped or thought they would be all the time. And so we played our starters a lot. And some of that was, I could look back and say I should have rested guys a little more maybe. I've certainly looked at all that, thought about all that. But it was hard. Like sometimes we needed guys to make shots they couldn't, we just didn't make them. And in that game, I mean, we were 0 for 9, 1 for like 13 from 3. And you go back and look at them, and I mean, 10 of them are, 9 or 10 of them out of 13 are like pretty open. And I think that's where the pressure of those games is really hard. I think that's where, being the higher seed, kids really feel that. And it's amazing. I tried to be so positive during the game. I just remember, because the one time I kind of blew our team out was at Louisville at halftime. It was the one time last year where I really lost it at halftime against them. And they didn't handle it very well. And so I was very hesitant about I didn't have to do it very often because, guys, we played so well, but it just wasn't a team that you could really go at them like a Hunter Tyson team or even a PJ Hall team a little bit. The guys were a little more sensitive, just a little more. And so, I certainly think about that. Maybe I should have been harder on them, but it just didn't feel like the right thing to do that day. But trying to encourage them and give them confidence didn't seem to work. So we just had a bad day. We picked a bad day to have a bad day.
Is it too early for you to right now have a feel for what your team can take?
Yeah, it's way too early. Yeah, no, there's no idea what.
When do you feel like you usually?
I mean, you have to go through some wars with them. You got to go through some battles. You got to, we're still in the get to know each other stage, and what makes them successful, and that's what are their games like, and who fits well with whom. And I mean, it's there's a lot of learning going on. I mean, us about them too, not just them learning our system and what we've got, and then how to play with each other. And we're a long way from that.
What hurt more, coming so close to the Final Four a year ago, or the early exit?
I mean, they both hurt, but probably being that close to the Final Four and not getting there. I mean, it's just it's crazy. It's a monumental achievement that, a lot of coaches don't ever get there, who are good coaches, really good coaches that, you never make it. And to be that close with that group, playing that well at that time, it was just an unbelievable run. It's funny, man, though, but the consistency of last year's team in terms of, just finding ways to win. And, we had a lot of question marks going into last year. And I think we thought we were all going to be pretty good, but nobody really knew Victor was going to play as well as he did. And we had a lot of new guys coming into the fold last year too. And that's why I'm so proud of that group. I mean, it's so hard to win 18 ACC games. I mean, that's so hard to do. And, I hate that it ended the way it did for Victor and Jaden, and obviously Chase and Ian. At least they had a little run the year before, but you just wanted those guys. It's like anything. If you can just win the first game, you build a little momentum and get a little swagger back. But it was hard for us at the end. We just weren't playing as well. And we just didn't have quite as much in our tank, it felt like with Ian and the injuries, and just didn't seem like we were in a great place.
Listen up, Clemson Tiger fans. Founders Federal Credit Union has a new office right on campus in the Hendricks Center. We're here to serve you with the financial tools you need and the personalized service you deserve. Not on campus, Founders has an office conveniently located on Old Greenville Highway. Stop by or visit foundersfcu.com to learn more and apply for a membership. Relax, you're with Founders. Federally insured by NCUA, membership qualification required. Celero Commerce, formerly known as Tandem Payment, is a full-service integrated electronic payments provider powered by leading-edge technology. Celero provides a wide array of merchant solutions, simplified payments. They make onboarding, taking payments, maintaining risk management and compliance, and getting support quick and easy. At Celero, they're all about helping you achieve sustainable growth as a business. Taking payments isn't the only thing your business needs. With Celero's solutions, you can manage inventory, sell products and services via social media, schedule staff, track sales, get reports, and much, much more. Find out more about Celero at celerocommerce.com. That's CELERO commerce.com.
How much did this past portal cycle, how much did connections mean to being able to do what you did with Lucas's?
Lucas's connections were big. It's like anything, it gets you maybe a seat at the table. And then obviously our recent success kind of opens people's eyes. Like, it was amazing. There's a lot of different ones. Obviously Lucas knows an AAU coach out in Utah that he's been friends with for a few years, and so that obviously helped with Jake. And then Carter was a little bit different. Coach Donlin knew some folks that had played against Carter's team and had done a good job of kind of jumping in on that a little bit. Nick Davidson wasn't so much like a super connection as it was just we got right in there, and it was really funny because they had already kind of had a chart of like things that they were looking for, and they had schools already on this chart, and it was. We were obviously on the list, and some of it had to do with style of play and, success and, high major and league and all the different things. And I remember after one of our first conversations, it was like you could tell things were going well. And it was like, yeah, you guys were going in, you guys checked all the boxes. And then after the Zoom and, a couple conversations, it's reaffirmed that what we ever initially thought of, why you guys would be a good fit. And so then you get the visit, and then you got to try to finish the recruitment and all those kinds of things. But, that was some of the recent success help, right? That the boxes were checked because we'd had recent success. We'd had success with post players. It's funny that maybe playing out in LA where Nick and those guys are from made it even more visible, right? And same with the guys from Utah, and just people out west had paid attention to us and kind of got to know us. And there's no question that we've experienced a little bit of that here in the last 3 to 4 years, that, we have more people returning phone calls quicker, and we have people that reaching out to us a little more often. But the whole, importance of like relationships, and Lucas McKay's job here has been terrific. I mean, that's something he excels at, and he's been with me a long time and has really worked hard at it and been our director of recruiting, and now he's our GM, and he's done a great job. And I have a great staff. I mean, my staff has been incredible here these last 3 years.
And Kevin White, I guess Graham mentioned his maybe agent connections and such have played a role in some of the.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take help from anybody, right? Like I do think Kevin, is in the basketball space some, and so that that is helpful to have people that in your administration that can support you, and if they can give you an angle or two, that's great.
What was the wildest part of this portal cycle? Was it just the inflation of?
Yeah, I mean the inflation of dollars so quickly was just like, I don't know, I don't want to say mind-boggling. It wasn't mind-boggling, but it's just like, wow, this is where we are. Like this is like these numbers you start to hear are real, and because you're always, agents are trying to move the numbers up for sure. You're trying to be as fiscally responsible as you can be, and most of the guys we got, there certainly were bids higher than what we were going to pay. Mm-hmm. But you have to be competitive. Guys will take some discount, but they're not going to, and the agents most agents don't want any discount unless they're really close to the kid, and, you hope that fit is the most important thing, or as an important thing, and sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But that was probably I think it shocked everybody a little bit. But, and I think we're all still like, well, what is that? We're all a little nervous because how do you move forward? Right, and it's
pay cuts.
I mean, I don't know how this is going to work. I mean, it's really unnerving. I mean, it's really unnerving. I mean, you don't, like, we all try to plan and do our jobs with, be organized and put a plan in place, and you get to the idea where you understand, okay, hey, this is more of a year-to-year model, and we've been fortunate that through this we've had some really good players within our program, the PJ Halls and the Hunter Tysons and the Ian Shefflins and the Chase Hunters, and I mean, that's 4 high school homegrown talents that have been all conference players in the ACC, and obviously big players on great teams at Clemson. And you got to remember, in basketball the numbers are small, and so it's not as easy to hit on everybody, and it's not, when you don't, it's most of those guys are probably developmental, maybe minus. I mean, Ian was definitely developmental. Hunter Tyson was really developmental. I mean, PJ was not. You could argue Chase wasn't maybe as a recruit, but ended up being developmental. And I think it's even remarkable that he would be here for 6 years. Speaks to a lot of the great things we have going at Clemson. But point being, it's you're still hopeful that that's the way you can do some of this, but you don't really know. And we were able to just kind of supplement. This year we had a little bit of a different situation, and we've had to make drastic changes.
Can I get your individual assessments of some of these
Okay.
guys so far, this early juncture? Nick?
Sure. Nick Davidson, just savvy, like good poise and high skill level, incredible personality. I mean, super kind and team guy, and it's like you can already tell just in the short time you've been with him, what an incredible human he is, and pleasure to coach, and especially in light of what he's had to deal with.
Yeah, and I guess I should mention that. How just difficult was that? Just
Yeah, it's
you had to navigate that.
still, yeah, it's, well, Lucas McKay deserves most of the credit for some of that. Yeah, it's one of the, still I can get a little emotional here because it's, hard. And obviously, as you get to know them more here in the last month, to know what they've had to deal with, losing your father the day after you commit to Clemson. Wow. Like, I can't even, and obviously I'm having conversations with him the day before and about all different kinds of things. And he says, Coach, I can't wait to get out and see you guys. And I'm so excited. My boys are going to Clemson. And the next day he passes. It was, I mean, I can't imagine what they're still going through. They had, Lucas went out there. I actually had a family wedding that I had to go to. And Lucas went right out and spent time with the family. And we're still all kind of trying to just get to know each other. We don't really know each other. He's coming to Clemson. We're excited. And then you get this kind of news, and how do you deal with it? And you want to be, you want to be helpful, but you also don't want to be a burden. And, we figured a way to Lucas, who'd done a great job of recruiting him with me, had gone out and just kind of was around for a couple days. And then as the family needed, or the boys, wanted to go for a couple meals, they'd go for a couple meals with him. And, I think one of the things that we, real blessing for us was that the dad wanted those kids to come to Clemson, and they knew that. And so, they ultimately decided to come out here, and to think that, their mom is still out in California, and she's processing a lot, and there's still a lot of things going on that they're trying to overcome. That's when all of this, that's the part of this that, you love, because you're getting close with people and trying to help them through difficult situations. It's part of you wanting to do a great job for a couple of young men that now don't have a father, and your job helping to develop is important. So thanks for that. That's hard.
Sorry.
That's okay.
And it was totally unexpected.
Yes.
Wow. How about Carter?
Yeah. Fun, big personality. He had off-season foot surgery. I don't know how many folks know that. And so he's out all summer. That was kind of a surprise that hit us. I think he thought he had a bone bruise or whatever, and he was playing some, and it just kind of started bothering him when he was home. And we're like, hey, you got to get that looked at. And he knew it, and then obviously we got the bad news that it is going to need surgery. And so the surgery went well. He's on the mend, but it's a major foot surgery. And so it's, that's been the probably a little bit frustrating thing, is the way we play with our bigs. It would be really helpful if he was out there, and he's not. And so it's made it a little harder to kind of figure out how do we look, and we're probably a big short in practice right now and all those things. But love his personality. Just he's just got a big personality, and he's chomping at the bit to get out there, and I can't wait to see him and see what we have. And but I can't really speak to his basketball because I haven't really seen him play.
What's the timetable?
We think he'll be fine when he gets back in September, like late August. But he's out all summer.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how about Jake?
Jake Walling, really versatile kid, live body, active, just he's already met like all different kinds of folks from Clemson, and just like fun guy, and good worker, and excited to see if we can help grow his game a little bit. He's big. He's 6'9", 200, and he's probably up to 220 pounds. I mean, but he's a wing. He's a more of a perimeter player. So yeah, that's been a fun guy too.
Butta Johnson.
Butta's quiet, but always has a smile on his face, and just good shooter. And one of the great things about him is I think he has great appreciation for being here. One of the fun things about his recruitment was, he's from the Virginia Beach area originally, and his dad is just a basketball junkie and grew up watching ACC basketball, and he and Bender were talking. Bender did a good job recruiting Butta, and used to talk about the Holly Farm Player of the Game and all these old games they watched. And we used to talk during the recruitment. We'd talk about all these old ACC players, and he talked about old Clemson players. And the guy just loves ball. Mm-hmm. And when we offered Butta and worked out all the details, and he says he's coming to Clemson, I think his dad was as excited and proud as anybody, and it was very refreshing. It was almost like his dad came up and gave me a big hug, and you could almost tell he was just like, my son's playing in the ACC. Mm. I grew up watching this. This is like a proud father moment, and it was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cool.
How about Porter?
JP, Sean Dixon, obviously recruited JP to Middle Tennessee and then left. And so JP laughs about it. Like, yeah, you recruited me and then left me to go to Clemson. And, I think he had actually called, he and Sean had kept in touch some, and he actually had called Sean the year before about, hey, any chance you guys would want me last year? And Sean was like, no, it's not. You need to stay at Middle, and blah, blah, blah. And, this year it just kind of happened quick. We weren't sure how many more guys we were going to take. And JP's a good scorer and good athlete, and I think is excited about coming to this level, and we're very fortunate that because of Sean's relationship, Sean basically got it done on his own easily. But excited to have him because he's a guy who's proven to be a guy that can make shots. And, that's probably a little bit of the concern with our team this year is, do we have enough shot making right now? I think, we really went after bigs initially, and obviously, those guys there just aren't as many, and so you got to be on point right away. And we had a huge need for it, and and then it's like you try to do the best you can figuring it out. And but I Dylan hasn't been a knockdown shooter. Ace Buckner has not been hasn't really played, so we just we've got to really improve our shooting, and that's probably my biggest concern right now. JP helps us in that, is what I'm saying.
Chase Thompson, what do you think is realistic? for him?
Yeah, I don't know. I am super excited about him, though. The great thing about he and Zach Foster is they both came into Clemson bigger than, high school, and maybe even surprised us a little bit. I mean, Chase was 220 pounds, freshman, 6'9", good athlete, and obviously a guy who's a winner. Like, he won in high school football, he won a state championship in basketball, played for a state championship in football, recognized as best male athlete, high school male athlete in the state of Minnesota last year. I just think he has a bright future. He finishes some things around the basket. He's athletically, he's got good skills. He jumps well. He runs pretty well. His basketball skills are good and will improve quickly because he's a worker, and he'll just play basketball now. And when you just focus on one sport, you're going to have some growth. So I think he has a chance to be a really special player.
How about Zach? I started hearing about Zach late last year. Just what y'all's optimism about
Yeah,
him.
just really like him. He's again another guy that played at about 175 in high school, and he shows up on campus and he's 185, and he's 188, 189. And he's got long arms and he's got big hands, and he's his brother was a really good player, and he's a worker. He's talented athletically. He moves well. He does a little bit of everything. He can dribble, pass, and shoot. He can handle the ball and play some point. He can score. I do think that those two guys especially are probably as talented a freshmen as we've had. And would expect both those guys to play. The defensive end is going to be can they rebound and defend and guard their position with how competitive it is, but they have tools to be high-level players, and it's exciting, and they're both good workers right now. And the other kid like Trent Steinauer, I think Trent has a real chance. I don't know how much it would be this year, maybe, but he works hard. He's got a high motor, so he's active. He runs like a deer. The game is fast for him right now, but as he gets stronger, and he's pretty strong, and he's got some toughness to him, and he will be a big, strong kid one day. He's got some athletic tools that are good.
Speaking of physical development, how about Dallas, Tom?
Yeah, I think I'm a little disappointed that Dallas doesn't weigh more. He took a step back when he went home. He's gained most of it back, but I was hoping he would be a little bit heavier and a little bit stronger. Having said that, his game isn't. His body type is never going to be one where he's going to be 215 pounds. I don't think, not for a long time anyway. He has tools though that are really good for his length. Like he'll come out of nowhere and block a shot, and you're just like, he's the only guy that can do that. He'll have a chase down block like Chase Hunter that not many guys can do. He'll block the shot of a guy he's guarding late. It looks like the guy's beat him, and then he'll come in and get his hand on a ball. And so he has some things that just because he's 6'8" or 9" and long, it's just he just does things that you don't even kind of pay attention to. His shot making is improving. His ball handling is improving. He just has to his motor's got to keep running hot all the time. But I do think he's a freshman. like he's a redshirt freshman. So I think it was a great decision to redshirt him, and I'm optimistic about him.
How about Buckner?
Yeah, Buck is really competitive. It's what we saw when we recruited him. He's got really good quickness. He's kind of got a fearless way about him. And in attack mode, I think he can be a good on-ball defender. Continuing to work with him on his shooting. But I like his mentality. Like he's got the mentality of guys that are good players. There's a confidence about him. There's a toughness about him. Again, just needs experience.
RJ, there were a couple of games that really stood out last year where y'all missed him, his athleticism.
Yeah,
bounciness.
McNeese State.
That in Louisville, I guess.
Yeah, correct.
Was his departure from here just as simple as you couldn't promise him a starting job? That was basically it.
Yes.
And so, what was the sort of enlightenment he got in coming?
I just think Georgia wasn't Clemson.
Yeah.
And he had a good team, good coaching staff, good guys. But he was always looking over his shoulder like, what's going on back here? It was just, I don't think he really in his mind wanted to leave. And sometimes you just, you maybe do something and know you probably shouldn't have done it, but you did it. And it's like, it was, I know like after the Duke game here, we won. I think they had a game and won. And, he was over here hanging out with our guys and celebrating and having fun. And, he was still talking to our players all the time, and not even our players, but our managers and he's such a fun-loving, big personality kind guy that, I'll never forget. I stood right there at my desk when he finally told me, Coach, I think I'm going to leave. And I got up and I told him I loved him and I'd help him in any way I could moving forward. That I hated to hear what he was telling me, but I respect his decision. And he was crying and I was in tears and we were hugging it up. And it was just like, that hurt me for a while, losing him because of the kind of person he is. He's just such a caring, kind, good person. And he brings energy to your program, and he's a Clemson guy. Like, you just know you're a Clemson guy. You're not making the right decision. And, but you have to respect people. And, thankfully for us, he realized he is a Clemson guy, and he came back. And it was really nothing. Like, it was like almost like, Coach, can I come back? And it was like, yes. And it was always like, there was never a reason. Would I have done that with every player that left? Probably not. With R.J. Godfrey, it was never not. Mm-hmm. He's such a positive person.
Did any of the transfers out this past cycle, A, surprise you, and B, maybe hurt in this?
Not 100%. There was a lot of the similar conversations with players about, what are your expectations for me? What are my expectations for you? Right? Like, again, I wasn't going to promise anybody that they're going to get a starting spot. Here's what I think you're going to be able to play, and this is the kind of money that we have set aside for you based on what we have. We're not going to get into, we can't really get into some big negotiating deal because we have so much more that we have to get. And, most of the guys that left were unproven or not as proven as we could probably get if we went into the portal. And so, it was hard. And, but no, I wasn't really surprised. I knew we were going to have big roster turnover. There's a lot of money out in the portal last year. There were no promises made here. It probably was the right thing for some of them to do. Maybe not all, but some. And, I'm not going to get into like the specifics with each kid or anything, but like it just, I don't think it caught our staff off guard. We kind of knew that this was probably going to be a little bit of a reset year. Mm-hmm. And if it needed to happen, that's okay too.
If shot making is your main question right now, what would be your, I guess, second?
Hard to say. It's hard to say because you just don't. I mean, we haven't done that much, and we don't have. Even Carter not being out there feels like a piece that we really need to know, and so one of the things that the last couple years that we've been able to do very well, some of it is we've been able to make adjustments, both within game to game, scout specific. We can, because we're older, because we have a lot of Clemson guys that know us, know our system, how we do things. It's one of the things I think that I do well as a coach most of the time is make adjustments within games, before games, leading up to a game, in halftime. And our guys can handle it. We probably require more basketball IQ, mental decision-making stuff than most. And so when we have older groups that are experienced like that, we can make these adjustments, and sometimes that's a difference in us beating Duke or somebody or even whatever, a game in the middle of the year that, making a change in a halftime at Virginia or something, you know what I mean, and playing better and figuring it out. With this many new guys, how can we make those kinds of – it's going to be slower going. And we do have some older guys, so it's not like they don't know anything. But that part of it is, I guess that's the concern.
Mm-hmm. Facilities, I should probably know this, but what's next? What's priority?
Hopefully July we're breaking ground on the new practice facility and office situation. The women are going to take over Swan, and we're going to move into the new facility. They're obviously renovating all this too, and then we're going to have a shared dining area up here that I think will be a better situation than what we currently have, which is okay. I do think that we've started to do a few more things where we're renting out Little John more. Whether it's we just had 10 days of I think new spring camp, and we've added more graduations, and obviously, hey, probably need to do even more of that kind of stuff to raise revenue for this $20 million. So having another gym will be much better for the men's and women's basketball programs, and so that we're not, there are times we're both in here doing a few things, and we have to adjust our schedules, and even adding gymnastics. As you kind of forget about that, but when we started this building, we didn't have gymnastics, and so now there are at least four Fridays a year where we have a gymnastics meet, and we may be trying to practice. The women are trying to practice. There's you're trying to have a night meeting. You're trying to get organized for a Saturday game, and there's a lot going on, and it's just a little less than ideal right now. And that new facility will be very helpful, as well as just another show of commitment to basketball here at Clemson. And, it's like I've said, there's a drastic difference in my time at Clemson the first 7 years versus the last 8, and it coincides with us having facilities that have shown the commitment that we want to be good in basketball at Clemson.
Did I get everybody, all the guys, roster guys? Did I miss anybody?
Well, Blake Davidson,
Yeah.
Nick's little brother,
Yeah.
And Blake's probably going to redshirt. He's a young big guy that has a high skill level, high IQ, athletically needs time to develop for the level, but fun kid, very analytical kid. He was kind of funny during the recruiting process because he was one of the guys that was into all the charts with his brother, and he's more the analytical guy, so it was kind of cool.
Anything else on your mind that we haven't touched on?
I can't think of anything.
There's a lot to cover.
There's a lot going on.
I'm sure I've missed something.
A lot going on.
I think that's it for me. Can I
Okay.
get a picture of you?
Oh, God.
You might have heard there at the end me asking if I could get a picture of Brad. He didn't really like that. Going to be a really, really interesting basketball season, just given all the new pieces. We thought that was a new look team last year. That was nothing compared to this one. Appreciate the support of our sponsors for continuing to make this happen. And of course, thanks to every single one of you for continuing to listen. Cheers.
Thank you.